What if seeing too much isn't a gift, but a quiet curse? There's a moment when awareness turns heavy, when the illusions that once gave comfort dissolve, and you stand naked before the machinery of existence. Jung warned that expanding consciousness always demands a price. The more you see, the less you can pretend. The world doesn't change, only your eyes do, and suddenly everything that once felt ordinary carries unbearable depth. Every smile hides exhaustion, every word conceals fear, every moment whispers its impermanence. At first, you believe you've gained clarity, but clarity is not always kind. To awaken is to lose the anesthesia that shields the sleeping. The noise of society, once harmless, now rings hollow. Conversations feel rehearsed, ambitions lose flavor, and the things that once defined success seem made of smoke. You begin to see the invisible threads, how people lie to themselves, how you used to lie too. The truth doesn't set you free, it breaks you open. There's grief in awakening. You mourn the simplicity of ignorance, the belonging that came from blindness. You start to understand why so many choose illusion, not because they are weak, but because the truth is unbearable without love to hold it. Seeing reality as it is can make you ache, because awareness without compassion is cruelty. And yet, beneath the heaviness, a strange peace emerges. A still center that knows it's better to see clearly than to live comfortably blind. You realize that awakening isn't about light, it's about sight, the courage to face what has always been there. Before we continue, take a moment, check if you're subscribed to the channel. Like this video if you've ever felt the weight of seeing too much, and tell me in the comments, has awareness ever made you feel more distant from the world you used to belong to? When the eyes awaken, they no longer recognize the world they once adored. You begin to see not only what is visible, but what hides behind it. The fear beneath laughter, the emptiness behind ambition, the longing behind every mask. At first, you try to share what you see, to explain, to help others wake too. But soon you learn that most don't want truth, they want comfort. And so, a quiet distance forms between you and the rest of the world. Jung understood this as the exile of consciousness. The awakened mind walks alone not because it rejects others, but because it has stepped beyond the shared dream. The conversations that once fed, you now taste like ash. The gatherings that once felt alive now feel hollow. You smile, you listen, you nod. But inside, a part of you stands apart, observing the play from the wings, unable to return to the stage. Loneliness after awakening is not the absence of people, it's the absence of illusion. You realize that genuine connection is rare. It can only exist between those who have faced their own darkness. Most avoid it, terrified of the mirror it holds. So you stop trying to convince and start to observe with quiet compassion. You love people for their blindness, the same way you once loved yourself for yours. In time, solitude stops feeling like punishment and becomes sanctuary. You begin to cherish silence, the stillness where the mind can breathe. It's there, in the solitude of understanding, that you hear the faint hum of the universe, the same silence that speaks through stars and dreams alike. To see deeply is to stand alone, but that solitude is sacred. It's the space where the soul begins to remember what it truly is. Awakening doesn't hand you new truths. It dismantles the ones you built your life upon. It begins quietly, like a faint crack in the wall of belief. Then, without warning, the entire structure collapses. Jung called this the confrontation with the self, the moment when consciousness expands beyond the narrow frame of identity. What once felt stable begins to dissolve. The ideas that shaped you, who you are, what you value, why you exist, suddenly seem paper-thin. You stand in the ruins of your own convictions, staring into the void that certainty once concealed. This collapse is terrifying. The ego clings to the familiar, whispering that without its illusions, you'll disappear. But the collapse isn't destruction, it's revelation. You begin to see that truth was never contained in your beliefs, but in your awareness itself. Every certainty you lose carves space for something vaster, quieter, and infinitely more real. For a time, though it feels like madness, the mind, stripped of its anchors, spins in confusion. You long for the comfort of answers, but awakening is not about answers. It's about learning to live without them. You start to see how every truth you once defended was just a reflection of fear of death, of insignificance, of change. Yet within that emptiness, a strange clarity dawns. When all explanations fall away, what remains is pure presence, the unfiltered experience of being alive. The collapse of belief is the birth of seeing. Without the armor of certainty, you are finally vulnerable enough to perceive reality as it is. Raw, unpredictable, sacred. To awaken is to stand in the ruins of your old self and realize that what you called destruction was, in truth, transformation. The ground didn't vanish. It widened. Seeing clearly does not make you lighter. At first, it makes you ache. Jung understood that every increase in consciousness deepens sensitivity. When the illusions fade, so does the numbness that once protected you. You begin to feel everything, the suffering behind the world's beauty, the fragility hidden inside every smile, the pain woven through all human striving. Awareness opens your heart as much as it opens your eyes. And sometimes the weight of compassion feels unbearable. The lucid mind can't look away. You notice the injustice, the manipulation, the quiet desperation pulsing beneath modern life. You see how people cling to distraction, not because they are shallow, but because they are drowning. And you can't unsee it. Every interaction becomes layered with meaning. Every silence hums with the tension of what's unspoken. You walk through life like someone who's read the script of the play, unable to fully enjoy it, but unable to stop watching. This is the cost of lucidity, empathy without armor. You feel the world as if its pulse runs through your veins. Some nights you envy those who still sleep, who can believe without question, hope without awareness. But the envy fades when you realize that seeing is not punishment, it's initiation. The pain of perception is the soul's way of stretching to contain truth. Still, the exhaustion is real. Lucidity burns. It consumes illusions like fire. And what remains is raw and tender. So you learn the discipline of gentleness, how to rest in awareness without drowning in it, how to care deeply without collapsing. Tell me in the comments, have you ever felt that understanding too much has made life heavier, not easier? After awakening, a strange dissonance appears, the distance between what you know and how you live. You see the machinery behind existence, the fragile architecture of society, the patterns repeating endlessly. And yet, you must still participate in it. You still work, speak, smile, buy, and plan. But something inside you no longer believes in the game. Jung called this tension the conflict between spirit and matter, the difficulty of reconciling inner truth with outer form. It feels like standing with one foot in eternity and the other in illusion. You watch people chase what you know cannot satisfy, yet you too must play along to survive. You perform, but you no longer belong to the performance. Even simple acts, talking, planning, pretending, begin to feel hollow, as if you're moving through a dream you've already awakened from. The awakened see the abyss between perception and participation. They understand the world's absurdity, yet they keep walking through it, not out of hypocrisy, but out of compassion. To stay alive here, one must learn the art of double vision, to act without believing, to engage without attachment, to love without illusion. Jung believed this was the mark of maturity, to live fully in the world while belonging to something beyond it. At times, the dissonance aches. You feel trapped between truth and function, too awake to be blind, too human to be free. But slowly, you learn to bridge the gap, to let awareness guide action instead of paralyze it. You begin to live symbolically, knowing that every ordinary moment hides a sacred one inside it. The abyss doesn't vanish, it deepens, and with it, so does your ability to walk it with grace. There comes a point in awakening when words lose their meaning. After the collapse of illusions, speech begins to feel like noise, a way of hiding, not revealing. Jung understood that silence is not the absence of communication, but its highest form. When you see reality without distortion, language becomes too small to contain it. The awakened learn to speak less, not out of arrogance, but because truth no longer fits inside sentences. Silence becomes a sanctuary. You stop rushing to explain yourself, to defend, to convince. You watch the world arguing in circles, each side blind to its own shadow, and you realize that understanding cannot be forced into anyone. Insight must ripen in solitude. So you step back, you listen, you let silence become your teacher. In that stillness, something profound happens. Perception deepens. You begin to hear what the world never stops saying, the hum of existence beneath the noise of thought. The silence between sounds becomes louder than any word. You start to feel the invisible intelligence weaving through everything, the same silence that shaped stars, that watches through your eyes. Solitude no longer feels like isolation, it becomes communion. You sense that the universe speaks in the language of quiet, through the rhythm of your breath, the pause between heartbeats, the vast emptiness behind all motion. What once felt like emptiness now feels alive, pulsing with unseen presence. To dwell in silence is not to escape life, but to finally participate in it fully. When you stop trying to fill the void, you discover it was never void at all. It was awareness, waiting for your attention. In silence, you do not lose yourself. You find the part of you that was never lost. Once the initial storm of awakening passes, something unexpected begins to grow where pain once lived. Compassion. At first, awareness isolates. It feels like exile from the human dream. But as you learn to see without judgment, the walls between you and others start to dissolve. Jung wrote that what we condemn in others is what we refuse to face in ourselves. The awakened learn this truth the hard way. The same blindness that once frustrated you becomes familiar because you recognize it. You've worn it before. True compassion is born not from purity, but from understanding. You no longer pity the asleep. You remember what it felt like to be them. You stop trying to change people and start loving them quietly, from a place beyond control. You realize that everyone is doing the best they can with the level of consciousness they have. Every cruelty hides fear. Every arrogance conceals fragility. Every ignorance is just innocence that hasn't yet met its own shadow. The awakened heart does not stand above. It bends lower. You listen longer. You speak softer. You forgive quicker. Compassion becomes your natural state, not because the world deserves it, but because you finally see that nothing is separate. The same consciousness breathes through all things, through the sinner and the saint, the sleeping and the awake. Yet compassion is not sentimentality. It's fierce, patient love, the kind that sees clearly but chooses kindness anyway, to hold awareness without hardening, to see darkness without despair. That is the mark of true awakening. Tell me in the comments, what has awakening taught you about compassion, even toward those who hurt you? After the great unraveling, after the illusions have burned and the noise has fallen away, you find yourself craving simplicity. not the simplicity of ignorance, but the simplicity born from depth. Jung knew that true wisdom doesn't expand endlessly. It circles back, becoming humble, human, quiet. You stop chasing enlightenment and start noticing life again. The warmth of light on skin, the sound of rain, the tenderness of impermanence. Awakening was never meant to make you special, it was meant to make you real. In the beginning, you thought awakening would lift you above the world. Now you understand it's what anchors you within it. Complexity fades. The need to prove, to preach, to be understood, it dissolves. You begin to see that truth was always simple. Breathe, be kind, stay present. The more consciousness expands, the smaller the self becomes, until awareness and simplicity are the same thing. You start appreciating the ordinary as sacred. Washing dishes feels like prayer. Silence becomes music. Solitude feels like companionship. The more you return to the small, the closer you come to the infinite. You see that divinity hides in what you used to overlook. A glance, a sigh, the trembling of a leaf. Simplicity is not the absence of mystery. It is the form mystery takes when it's at peace. The awakened eventually stop searching for meaning because they've found it in everything. You no longer need to understand life. You allow life to understand you. This is the quiet grace of returning home to what was always here. Simplicity doesn't make you less. It makes you whole. The world doesn't calm down when you awaken. It becomes louder. You begin to see the chaos you once ignored, the noise of opinions, the wars of ego, the desperate grasping of humanity trying to make sense of itself. But something inside you changes. Where once you would have been pulled into the storm, now you begin to sense a stillness beneath it. Jung taught that the task of consciousness is not to escape conflict, but to hold its tension without collapsing. True serenity is not found outside the storm, it's the I within it. At first, this balance feels impossible. You still feel fear, anger, sorrow. But now, instead of drowning, you watch these waves rise and fall with quiet curiosity. You begin to understand that chaos is not disorder. It is the raw movement of life endlessly reorganizing itself. When you stop demanding that the world make sense, you begin to see its strange harmony. The same energy that destroys also renews. The same pain that wounds also awakens. Serenity is not indifference, it's intimate awareness. You feel everything, but nothing owns you. You stop resisting what is and start participating consciously in it. You no longer need to fix every broken thing because you sense that even brokenness belongs to the whole. From this space, compassion deepens. You become a quiet presence in a frantic world, a still flame that neither fights the darkness nor fears it. Jung said that when the inner world is in order, the outer chaos loses power. The awakened do not seek peace by escaping life. They find it by being fully present within it. Serenity is not the absence of chaos, it's the mastery of self amid it. To see clearly is both a blessing and a burden. Jung knew that consciousness expands through suffering, that to awaken is to carry the light and the shadow together. The awakened live with a kind of double vision, one eye on eternity, the other on human fragility. You see the truth behind the masks, the cycles repeating endlessly, the beauty laced with decay. And though you understand it, you can never unfeel it. Awareness does not erase pain, it gives it meaning. The weight of seeing too much is loneliness, yes, but also grace. You become intimate with impermanence. You learn to love without clinging, to care without controlling, to grieve without despair. The more you see, the gentler you become. Understanding softens the edges of judgment until only compassion remains. The awakened heart doesn't close to survive, it opens wider, learning to hold the unbearable without breaking. And so you walk through life differently. The world still trembles with noise, but inside you there is space. You begin to sense that the purpose of awakening was never to escape reality, but to see it, touch it, and love it fully, to be the awareness through which existence experiences itself. The gift is not in seeing more than others, but in loving them even when they cannot see. You carry this awareness quietly, like a secret flame. It burns, but it illuminates. It hurts, but it heals. The pain of seeing is the price of understanding, and the world needs those who are willing to bear it. If you've reached this point, take a breath. Check that. You're subscribed. This channel exists for those who walk with open eyes. Like this video if you felt the strange ache of awareness, and leave a comment sharing what seeing too much has taught you. Then, when you're ready, watch the next video. Because awakening doesn't end here, it only deepens in silence.